Hey, yo, Pro Wrestling Podcast listeners, welcome to the show where we don't sing it, we bring it. Help us out and click subscribe to show your support. Guys, are you sick and tired of dropping 60 to 100 bucks for the latest and greatest wrestling video game? Stop immediately. Go to Wrestler Unstoppable, available exclusively through Facebook. Create a wrestler, sign contracts, get involved in storylines, headline pay-per-views, even build your own corporation, all included in Wrestler Unstoppable, available now to all Facebook users, totally free. If you want to become a member of the Pro Wrestling Podcast family, you want your name in the shoutouts like our good buddy John down in Texas, then jump over to our Patreon page at patreon.com/Pro Wrestling Podcast. Sign up today. We've got loyalty rewards. If you are a $15 a month contributor, you can co-host a live episode with myself. $7.50 a month contributors, you get entered into a drawing to also host a live show with me. Hi, everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Pro Wrestling Podcast. If you've got questions, you've got comments, anything you want us to talk about in a future episode, drop us a line, give us a call at the Pro Wrestling Sound Off line, 267-642-1160, and we will try to get to everything you're interested in a future episode. As a talk-to-text service, you talk, it texts it to me, and I can try to get to everything that you're interested in. Don't forget, if you get a chance, stop by our homepage, prowrestling.com. We'd love to have you there, and I'm going to jump right into the news. This week has been an interesting one for me, good, bad, and indifferent. And I got to start with NXT. NXT may have been one of the worst shows I have ever seen in my entire fandom of professional wrestling. And that's saying something, because I've seen some pretty crappy shows in my lifetime. But what an absolute train wreck this episode of NXT was. And so you understand, that's frustrating when you've got multiple championship matches on the card and everything else. So you start out the night with an NXT North American Championship match. It's a great match start to finish, except for the finish. You know, the whole body of the match. You get to the very end of the match, and you've got distractions, you've got issues going on, you've got Cameron Grimes, who you've spent months building up as a babyface, and suddenly, because of the way he wins the match and retains his championship, it suddenly changes the whole feel of his character. All right, Trick Williams causing the interference, and all this kind of nonsense. It took what could have been a great match and turned it into a total dumpster fire. And it's almost a shame to have to say that, because it takes away from everything else they did earlier in the show. But it really, you built both of these characters in a great way, and I actually love the fact, the reference to the bloodline going against Cameron Grimes in the lead up to this match, and then you go and you totally negate all that momentum you built, all the kudos that you've put around Cameron Grimes for the last several months, and you give him this crappy win, which kind of puts him in the heel category. And I'm hoping they don't go that direction, because it took this long to finally get him over as a babyface. You go from there, you're going to go into another, Braun Breaker's going to have an opportunity later. They're going to crown new NXT Tag Team Champions. It's going to be supposed to be a great night. Braun Breaker comes out. There's a whole thing going on with Rick Steiner and Joe Gacy, and messages, about Gacy calling out Braun. Seemed awkward to me. I'm not a big Gacy fan right now. I'm not. I don't feel like he's on the level where he should be challenging for the NXT Championship. And what's frustrating for me is I look at the roster and you see people who've been there so long. For example, when you're looking up and down the card and you see LA Knight, who seems to be almost like a setup man for other young talent to get to a championship opportunity, but he never walks around with any gold. I'd much rather see LA Knight in a premium program with Braun Breaker, Grayson Waller in a program or something like that. I don't see Joe Gacy being there right now. But that's what they're looking to do. This ridiculous angle about his father and missed birthdays and all this crazy nonsense. Like I didn't buy into any of it. It's too cartoonish. It's too scripted. I get it. It's sports entertainment. This to me wasn't entertaining. When you see the whole thing coming up with Von Wagner's another superstar that they have totally botched his presentation. He's an awkward looking dude to begin with, but he had some promise, some potential. He wins this week going into his match, and you got this whole thing going on with Wagner and his issues with Kushida that are in the backdrop. I didn't enjoy this. I didn't enjoy Von Wagner's work. So it's another match that's like, I don't even want to rate it. It's terrible. Nikita Lyons, who's one of the most popular people on the show right now, she's in the back talking about her feuds that they're setting up, and there's just, she has something to prove to the fans. Don't make her speak. That's not why she's there. We're not there to hear her speak. Um, I mean, she's certainly not in a position where she should be looking anywhere near um, going for the women's championship yet. So we don't need to hear her talk yet. She's not there yet. Build her up in the ring more. Waste of time, waste of airspace. Then you get Mandy Rose and Dakota Kai in the ring, women's championship match. These two looked about as clunky as it gets. I'm not trying to knock either one of their talents. I think Dakota Kai has been overlooked for far too long. Mandy Rose clearly doing a great job as women's champion. These two should have put on a clinic for the women's division, and instead it was like they were just never in sync. It was very awkward, and it was almost the exact same ending as you had earlier in the night. You had the whole interference leading to Cameron Grimes getting a win. Now you have interference from Toxic Attraction coming out, and they caused the false finish to the match. And you see the same situation, the championship retained by Mandy Rose. Again, like when you do the same angles in segment after segment after segment, it's not exciting anymore. People don't want to see that. They want to see some creative finishes, and just this. That's what NXT was. It was so much better than Raw and SmackDown because they had innovative finishes and unique match concepts, and the feuds were allowed to almost be a lot more physical, and we're not getting that. We're getting like Raw and SmackDown light, and I just can't stand it. They gave another segment to the Gacy and Braun Breaker storyline. No idea why. Throwing the Hall of Fame ring in the fire and all that nonsense. Like, it's just ridiculous. Go back to the ring. It's time for the Zion Quinn match of the week. You know, he's great. I'm sure he's going to be something special at some point, but let's be honest. The match was over in a matter of a couple minutes. It really wasn't worth anything. Another time filler, which when you're NXT, you need to really take the time to build something of importance. And then, you have Natalya shows up. She's walking around in the back. She accidentally said the boat is now here in NXT. I don't know which. You could choose for yourself what BOAT stands for. I'd rather she called herself the GOAT, because at least I could buy into that. She's got the Guinness records for pay-per-view appearances and all that other nonsense. Go with this. It just felt weird. Then you have your gauntlet match for the NXT Tag Team Championship. Creed Brothers, Pretty Deadly, Legado de Fantasma, Josh Briggs and Brooks Jensen, Grayson Waller and Sanga. Talk about a mishmash of like, who cares? If the Creed brothers, here's the problem. So the Creed brothers literally run through everybody, which totally destroys any legitimacy of your entire tag team division. And then in the end of the match, a tag team that only debuted on NXT a week ago become your new tag team champions, beating the team that just destroyed the rest of the division. Pretty Deadly wins the tag team championship. Again, like, what? Like, don't get me wrong. I love the team. They made their mark over in NXT UK. If you don't know anything about them, look them up. They've been in the UK for a while, since about 2015. They've had some success over there, Rev Pro, Progress Wrestling, places like that. But for them to be in a prime position, winning the NXT Tag Team Championship in their first real exposure, it didn't feel right. You had 3 opportunities for championship matches to deliver, and none of them did. The tag team match could have. I thought the Creed brothers should have won. Now, if they didn't, if you're going to do it with Pretty Deadly, and I just want to be clear, I'm not trashing Pretty Deadly. I think they've got an interesting gimmick. Those, whatever you want to call it, not even a half shirt. The shirts that are cut off up on the chest with the long sleeves, it looks ludicrous, and maybe that's why it's perfect. It'll get them heat. The 1980s long hair, rocker hair looking tag team. They almost look like a bad guy version of the Rockers. They really do. I'm fine with their look and everything about their presentation. I just don't see how you bring in a new team and give them the championships their first match. How is that how bad your tag team division is? We didn't even have 5 teams to fill out a gauntlet match. So let's throw these guys in there right away, give them the championships, have all the other teams get beat, and then the team to beat everybody else lose to a brand new team. What does that say about your tag team division? All in all, NXT god awful show. This is one of the few I won't go back and rewatch. I was really disappointed. But whatever, it is what it is. Now you look on the flip side and you go to AEW. AEW had what, in my opinion, was one of the better cards that we've seen in recent weeks. You get the tag team championship match, Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus against Red Dragon, which happily Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus retained. Now, I got to be clear. Red Dragon is a much better tag team. I'd much rather have seen Red Dragon win from a wrestler standpoint. But storyline-wise, Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus have really not had much to do since they won the titles. Them retaining over Red Dragon gives them a little bit of credibility until they can get into a match with FTR for all the gold, which I expect FTR to win. And I think that would be wonderful. But the match was solid. I mean, it could have been better, but it was pretty solid. Good ending. Nice face-off at the end with the belts in the air and all that kind of fun stuff. I loved the whole setup. You've got the Ring of Honor World Television Championship, Minoru Suzuki versus Samoa Joe. Why you're putting the Ring of Honor World Television Championship a week after it was won on your show, and it's not a Ring of Honor show, and you haven't announced anything, any plans for how you're going to produce or distribute Ring of Honor television product, why would you have that championship, their television championship, defended on somebody else's television show until you have your own show? You know what I mean? Like, I didn't like the vibe, and I don't understand why you would have Suzuki win the title only to drop it right back to Joe, unless it's one of these things where you just wanted to get the belt off of all the Ring of Honor champions and then transition them to AEW guys. I didn't like that. And I thought Suzuki and Joe, I mean, that's a dream match for a lot of people. I think they did pretty well with what they had to offer. But the card itself, I mean, just looking at on paper, Suzuki versus Joe is a heavy-hitting, nonstop action match that you want to see every day of the week, twice on Sunday. But I thought they delivered. Samoa Joe winning the championship, new Ring of Honor television champion. Of course, he gets jumped, at the end of the show. Some people were not happy that Satnam Singh is the new debutee. He's like a 7-footer from India who attacks Samoa Joe. I get it. If you're going to have somebody attack and lay out a brand new acquisition like Samoa Joe, you usually want it to be an established star. I get what they're doing here. They're trying to set up their international distribution in India. You need a premier star from India to do that. I don't have a problem with the guy coming out and doing something of substance, but I wouldn't have him beat up a champion because he doesn't look to me like he's ready to be on TV in great matches, whereas Joe clearly is. What I would have had him do is had him jump somebody else. Like, for example, a couple weeks ago, Big Show made his return to AEW Dark and in Rampage and whatnot. Have him beat up the Big Show. Have the show come out for doing an interview with somebody, or even interview you, Joe, after the match, and have him lay out the Big Show there. So it's two huge guys, and it's almost like it's not a passing of the torch, but you get that vibe. That would have been fine with me, but having him lay out a brand new television champion Samoa Joe who needs to be in there with people who can really work, I have concerns over that. But whatever. Shock value. A lot of people in the arena had no idea who the heck he was, but whatever, it is what it is. We got to see CM Punk versus Penta, another dream match on paper. Pretty solid ring work. The two of them, are you surprised? They're always great in the ring. We got to see the Eddie Kingston, Santana, and Ortiz against Chris Jericho, Daniel Garcia, and oh gosh, why am I forgetting his name? I feel horrible. Yeah, you know how bad it is when you forget a talent's name and they're supposed to be a part of a premier storyline. Makes me feel like a jerk. Jake Hager. How the heck do you forget Jake Hager's name? So you get this 6-man tag team match. This really should have waited for a pay-per-view, but whatever. We get the match. Jericho Appreciation Society picks up the win. Kind of expected it because Kingston has gotten the better of Jericho's group quite a lot recently. I'm just kind of over all the groups, but in all, I mean, it's a fine match. It is what it is. We get Keith Lee and Swerve Strickland against Ricky Starks and Powerhouse Hobbs. Total shocker here with Hobbs getting the pinfall win over Keith Lee. I'm okay with it. I like it. It means Keith Lee's not afraid to put somebody over, which I love. Swerve Strickland takes a loss too, which I'm okay with. It keeps them believable as being able to integrate in the storylines with just about anybody on the roster. I would really love to either get rid of the FTW championship or make it mean something. We haven't seen it defended in forever. We got Marina Shafir in a match with Sky Blue, quick and painless. Decent match, I suppose, for what it is, and with her lack of experience. And of course, the MJF Shawn Dean stuff, I saved that for the end because I love what they're doing with Wardlow. They are absolutely putting him in a position to be huge if they want him to be. And the fact that they have Shawn Dean pick up the win because of a countout, because MJF is afraid to get back in the ring because of Wardlow's presence, it worked for me. In comparison to NXT, this was a very good show. I'm not going to say it's a 5-star show, but it was definitely a good show. And it sets up some other things. So we know Battle of the Belts is coming. We know Nyla Rose is going to challenge Thunder Rosa for the Women's Championship. We know that Sammy Guevara is going to take on Scorpio Sky for the TNT Championship. And we know that Dalton Castle, I shouldn't say former, I guess he's current Ring of Honor competitor, is going to face Jonathan Gresham for the Ring of Honor Championship. Now, if you see Castle win that, I think it's because they don't come to terms on an agreement with Gresham. Maybe that's the only reason they're bringing him in. I hope it's not one of these things where Dalton Castle comes in for one match to squash him, get rid of him, and then they try to move to a different presentation for Ring of Honor. Dalton Castle is able to put down some incredible matches, so I'm hoping that's something of substance for Battle of the Belts. I just think that if you're having a show billed as Battle of the Belts, I hope they put all of the championships on the line at that show. I think it would be ridiculous not to do that, and in a lot of ways, misleading. And that's one of the things you don't want to do, is mislead the fans. Another AEW tidbit, though, Pat Buck, who was producing for WWE and worked really as a liaison between WWE and independent talent that would come in as extras and whatnot for different angles on Raw and SmackDown. Right after WrestleMania, he leaves his job. He produced the Brock and Roman match at Mania. He produced the Charlotte Flair Ronda Rousey match at Mania, and he put out this public statement about how he accomplished everything he wanted to accomplish, blah, 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 and then he leaves WWE. A couple days later, he's in AEW as a producer. So clearly, whatever he said to get out of his contract must not have a no-compete clause like they do for the wrestling talent, but he's already with AEW as a producer. He is signed. I think that's a big gift for AEW because I think he's a talented producer. I really do. And if you're WWE, you got to be ticked. So angry right now because it's like a direct slap in the face. You left the big leagues to go to the second promotion. I guess maybe he considers that to be a challenge to try to get him on the same level. Whatever. Going to wrap up some loose ends. Juice Robinson, he has announced on Wednesday that he's leaving New Japan Pro Wrestling. His contract expires on April 30th. He's 33 years old. He's still young enough to go for a while, but some of the things that I really didn't like coming out of his interview, he talked about how there's nobody left. Is there anybody he wants to work with or something like that? And he said, I don't really have anybody I want to wrestle, to be honest. I just don't have the urge to wrestle really anymore. And I don't know if that's an angle. This was all on Wrestling Observer Live. I don't know if that's an angle or if that legitimately, if he's just done with wrestling. If he's done, whatever, so be it. I wish we had people who had passion in the business. But if not, I hope he works it into a great angle to get himself a contract somewhere. And speaking of contracts, the Impact Wrestling tag team, the Good Brothers, former WWE champions. They've appeared on AEW. They're in Impact. They've done New Japan stuff. Their contracts are coming up also. And the word is that, they're very loyal to Impact Wrestling. They would love to stay with Impact Wrestling if there's something to be worked out there, but there's no word on if Impact is interested in re-signing with them. So we'll have to see. They've put on some great matches. Even over the WrestleMania weekend, they were at the Impact's Multiverse of Matches, and they went against the Briscoe brothers in the main event, and they won. So clearly Impact is willing to put them in a key position. It'll be curious to see what they do with them. Jay White, another signing that people were looking to hear about. He went to AEW, showed up on television, had a match, but he is not signed to AEW. He was talking in an interview earlier in the week about his contract status and things like that. And he's not under contract to AEW. They let him kind of do what he wants to do in the United States. What I thought was interesting is he does have, if you had to pick somebody to go against in WWE, he wants to face Randy Orton, which I think is such a testament to what a great performer Randy Orton is. He talked about how that was the first guy he really got behind when he was watching as a young teenager. He said he watched him, I think it was 2004 SummerSlam. He watched Randy Orton and Triple H. Like, he really took to Randy Orton. And if that happens, great. If not, he's not going to lose sleep over it. But interesting that that's his pick for if he could wrestle anybody. I would have thought it would have been Seth Rollins. I really would have. But I'd love to see the match. I really would. And the last tidbit for tonight, Drew McIntyre is going to get an opportunity to wrestle Roman Reigns for the Undisputed Championship in a string of house shows in the United Kingdom coming up this spring season. They're going for a whole run through England, the O2 Arena in London, Friday, April 29th. They're going to Paris, France on the 30th. And they're going to Germany on May 1st. So the three openings that they've talked about. And on those cards, it's going to be Roman Reigns versus Drew McIntyre for the Undisputed Championship, Charlotte Flair versus Ronda Rousey, RK Bro versus the Usos. And they've also advertised everybody, Intercontinental Champion Ricochet, Sasha Banks and Naomi, Gunther, Bobby Lashley, all those guys also advertise for the shows. But I find it interesting. House shows is usually where WWE kind of plants the seeds for what they want to do in the future. And the reason I find this interesting is it was also announced earlier this week that WWE is going to be returning to the UK for a big stadium show in July or August, I should say, or actually September 3rd. I got to get my dates correct. And I think if they do this on these house shows, I think it is an opportunity for them to see how they feel about running that program for that big event, because that's going to be a pay-per-view or a premium live event. So it'll be curious to see how that plays out. I think Drew McIntyre is probably the most legitimate challenger for Roman Reigns on the blue brand. I'd much rather see him go against Bobby Lashley at this point, since Bobby Lashley's been named as the number one baby face on Raw, but Drew McIntyre's number one face on SmackDown. So we'll have to see how it plays out. But right now, if I was a betting man, that's where my money would be. I think that's why they're doing that, is to see if they should be the headline for the stadium show. Now, I'm actually hoping that doesn't happen, because they're supposed to have the match with McIntyre and Tyson Fury at some point, and that would be a stadium show opportunity, but we'll have to wait and see. That's all the time we have for this episode. Check back with us next episode where we'll run down the latest wrestling news and rumors. Special thanks, as always, goes out to bensound.com and purpleplanet.com for producing any sound or music effects we use. Today's show is sponsored by Beazle Games. Bringing a new friend to family game night is easy with sketchy people. Showcase your artistic side with this game from Beazle Games by going to frowrestling.com, clicking the icon in the middle of the screen to pick up your copy today. And if you're looking for your next career move, or you're considering college, university life, or you just need some formal training for your next career decision, go to our sister website at frolifeplanning.com for all your higher education needs, because Fro Life Educational Planning is for today, for tomorrow, and for life with Fro Life. I'm Dr. Froelich, Mr. Fro. And I want to thank you so much for taking a few moments with us tonight. Until next time, take care, everybody. Have a great night. And check out all the wrestling you can. Not one dull moment. It's all great. And don't forget to support indie wrestling. Shout out to Triple WA in Hatfield, Pennsylvania, putting on great shows at the Quakertown Farmers Market. Get there every fourth Saturday of the month. Check them out. They got a great show. Until next time, everybody. Have a great night. See you later.